So we're seeing a phenomenon known as backbuilding thunderstorms across the southeast that continue to plague this region with heavy rain. There are flood watches up for many areas now. We're starting to see those expand now into North Carolina. A couple of flash flood warnings across parts of Georgia today, and flash flood watches out also across parts of Alabama and South Georgia into Florida. Also, the southern tip of Florida getting some heavy rain. Something that's kind of rare, too. We're getting some really hot weather across the northern plains from Nebraska north all the way into Minnesota, even Wisconsin, red flag warnings, and even some severe weather across the west as we're dealing with some pretty strong thunderstorms as we're starting to see a change in the weather. All right, let's go ahead and take a look again back into the southeast. We'll talk about these thunderstorms that continue to really just billow around this upper low that is spinning back here. We've seen this really stuck in place now for the last couple of days. We've got a lot of moisture out there, some of that even coming in off of the Atlantic with some upslope flow that is really pinwheeling around this upper low. So the threat for heavy rain will continue over the next couple of days, and if anything, it starts to lift a little bit further to the north. One of the reasons we're seeing these, we have the slow-moving, vertically stacked low that's just spinning across the south, and then you've got these boundary layers and these areas of converging air where they really start to set up, and then once that happens, look how these really aren't moving that much because your steering winds aloft aren't really there, so the storms, they sort of feed on themselves, and you can kind of see these areas of convergence. That's where the air comes together. It has to go somewhere. It can't go down. It has to go up, and when air rises, it lifts, it cools, it condenses, and you get the heavy rain, and in some cases, big thunderstorms, and that's sort of what we've seen over the last couple of days. And then to add to that, this is precipitable water. These are anomalies, departures from average based on this time of year or percent of normal, and precipitable water, it sounds like a bigger name, precipitable water. That's a mouthful. But if you were to take all of the moisture from the surface to the top of the atmosphere, squeeze it out, that's what's known as precipitable water. And these are percentages of normal. So we're seeing 150, almost 200% above average across parts of the Carolinas into Virginia. And you've got your mountains running like this. So you're going to get some heavy rain out of this with this southeast flow here. Winds are already veering out of the southeast. So more rain on the way. In fact, over the next couple of days, the Weather Prediction Center showing 3, 4, in some cases 5 inches. So a good 3 to 5 inches possible, especially from Virginia down into North Carolina, also South Carolina. Once you get west of the mountains, the air sinks. As it warms, it compresses. It's a little bit drier, so not as much rain. Although we'll see a couple of inches possible across southeast Ohio back into Kentucky and Tennessee, especially if we can get some stronger storms. I'll tell you where it's quiet, and I'll tell you where it's hot today. And you know what I'm talking about. If you're in Minnesota, South Dakota, Nebraska, I mean, you've got a lot of warm air advection moving in. That's moving in. Advection is just, it's coming in from the southwest aloft with this flow. It's also some really dry air. In fact, you've almost got desert southwest type conditions with relative humidities in the 20%. Or in the 10 to 20% range, dew points in the 20s. So with this really dry air and windy conditions, fire certainly a danger with our ridging aloft and even, I guess, some compressional warming here too. But overall, what's really driving this is this southwest flow aloft. Here's that upper low spinning across the southwest, and this is the weather maker that's going to move into the west over the next 24 to 48 hours. Much colder conditions moving into the Pacific Northwest, also into California, Utah, Wyoming, Idaho. We're going to get some rain and snow out of this as temperatures drop by the time we get to Wednesday and Thursday. And then looking at the upper level pattern, just to kind of show you what's driving the weather for the rest of the week, ridging across the south. Temperatures will warm up. In fact, I think our numbers really start to rise as we head towards Thursday and Friday, and that moves east as well. Now we're looking at below average temperatures in places today where we're seeing record heat across Minnesota, back into South Dakota, Nebraska, even Iowa as we head toward Friday and Saturday. So big changes on the way wherever you are. Strong storms possible again on Monday here across the southeast. That's really the area that we're watching for those heavy downpours. Also, some strong storms that could produce some tornadoes. It's not a huge threat, but not a zero threat, really, from South Carolina, East Georgia, and Middle Georgia, too, down into Florida, as we're watching this upper low again continue to spin here and bring more rain on the way for Monday. Let's take a look at everything, and we'll wind the time clock down a little bit. Above my head is the timestamp if you want to follow along. Again, with all of this moisture around, the rain showers will be quite efficient with a lot of lift in the atmosphere, some downpours possible, and some flooding possible as well. Again, those flood watches are out for some areas. Once we move into Tuesday and Wednesday, this finally starts to move out of the southeast. There comes that colder air into the west. That's going to bring our chances for rain and snow back into this region once we get, say, into Monday, Tuesday, into Wednesday. And we'll look at that in just a moment, just a little bit closer. Let's dive in region by region. We'll start off here in the central states, looking up toward the Mississippi Valley. Some heavy rain possible across parts of Tennessee, heading into, you can see how things pinwheeling back just to the west into parts of Arkansas, Missouri too. Not a tremendous amount of rain here, but nonetheless some showers, and we're staying dry across the central states. Once you get up into Minnesota, another hot day, but here comes the colder air finally moving into the west. Look at these temperatures. Let's start off with Monday. We're going to see high temperatures really in Texas start to warm up. We're into the upper 90s across West Texas. Another day into the 90s across the northern plains, into parts of Minnesota, all the way to the Canadian border. But look what happens on Tuesday. These overnight lows are going to be pretty warm. I mean, look, we may not drop below 70 from Pierre all the way north toward Fargo. And then once we get into Tuesday, look at the heat spreading into Texas. Dallas getting close to 100, 105 maybe for San Antonio. I mean, we'll be very close to that. So some really hot temperatures across the south. And then heading into Wednesday, the heat builds. If anything, we're into the mid-90s now from Oklahoma, even up into Kansas, low to mid-90s possible. And that heat starts to get pushed out of the Dakotas as our cold front moves in, some chillier temperatures. So our highs, look at this, we go from, my gracious, 90s to highs in the 40s. So some big changes on the way across the central and especially the northern central United States. Across the southeast, more rain on the way. It's easy to see everything pinwheeling around that low, and I think you watch the mountains here with some upslope flow. That could enhance those thunderstorms at least through Tuesday. Once you get west of the mountains, not as much rain. Everything finally lifting north as we head toward Tuesday and Wednesday. We start to see the showers at least decreasing coverage across the deep south. Temperatures held back on Monday. This is a quick look at your high temperatures, at least afternoon temperatures, I guess. Let's put this into motion. It's going to all depend on the clouds and the rain as to how warm you actually get. But overall, the trend, though, once we get past, say, Tuesday into Wednesday, will be for more sunshine, and with a strong May sun, your temperatures warming up quite nicely. So waking up Wednesday morning, kind of muggy, and we're starting to see that heat build, especially the further west you go. And then let's go a little bit further ahead in time. Look at this. By Thursday, places like Chicago, I don't know, we're not going to probably be in the upper 80s, but we could get close to the upper 80s, maybe even close to 90 once you get down here towards the Iowa, Missouri border. St. Louis warming up as well, and then by the weekend we're starting to really warm up here across the south. But there's that cooler air working into the upper Midwest with 50s and 40s for highs, so big changes. And across the west, huge changes into the Rockies, into the Cascades with snow flying. I mean, yeah, we've got May snow going here. Check this out. Temperatures dropping as we head into Monday as this upper level trough swings through. We've got the rain and the snow into the Cascades, into northern California. Heading into Monday night, that moves into the Intermountain West with rain and snow here into Idaho, into Montana. The Bitterroot Range likely seeing some snow out of this too. Down into the Wasatch, I think some snow will be flying here, and maybe even a little into the Sierras too, and that pushes east. And some of that could get heavy into parts of Wyoming heading into early Wednesday morning as our cold core of air moves across the central Rockies, and then that pushes east in some drier conditions and maybe a little bit warmer as we head toward the end of the week across the far west. All right, that's a quick look kind of at what's going on across the country. If you're just joining the live video, thanks for coming by. You can always back it up and take it from the beginning. And again, remember, anytime you miss the video, come back and you can subscribe and catch it anytime. All right. Hope you have a great one. I'll see you next time. Thanks again for all of those of you who have subscribed, especially the OGs if you've been here for a while. See you next time.